Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm Callie Waterhouse with the Arizona Association of Realtors, and we are thrilled to welcome you back to this webinar today for Make It Rain, Where to Find Business. And Liz Recchia is returning with us. She is the broker owner of We Sell Real Estate. She was the 2015 Weimar Realtor of the Year, the 2015 AAR Legislative Committee Chair. She is the author of Help, I Can't Make My House Payment, and she writes a weekly blog over at kitchentableadvisor.com. So today she brings us some great information on where to find business, where to find new business. So whether you're a new agent or a seasoned agent, I am sure that you will walk away today with some new tools in your business building toolbox. From today's webinar, you can expect to learn, to be entertained, and to get your questions answered. We're going to be asking questions during today's webinar, so please communicate with us through the question box that's just to the right on your screen. This webinar is part of, it's actually our Hot Topics track, and of course your feedback is appreciated. If you ever have an aha moment or have ideas on upcoming webinars, please know that we welcome those ideas and you can just email them over to me. So with all of that being said, we're going to welcome Liz.
Thank you. Well, hello and thank you for coming and attending the AAR webinar, Make It Rain. So just to give you a little background, I started my real estate when I was a real estate investor when I was very young with my husband, and it was a time of 21% interest rates, and some of you may even remember that. So we bought and sold fixers until we could afford to buy a house in the neighborhood we wanted to live. I became frustrated with real estate agents because they didn't seem to know much and they weren't particularly helpful. So in 1996, I got my real estate license, and in 2006, I decided to open my own brokerage and got my broker's license. A few years ago, I also decided to open my own real estate school, but just recently I became the Government Affairs Director for WEMAR, the West Maricopa Association of Realtors. So now I am in the process of closing down my brokerage so that I can spend my full-time energies at WEMAR as Government Affairs Director. So that just sort of gives you a little background in where I'm coming from. Now, over the past 4 years, I have taught hundreds of people in my pre-licensing for both salespersons and brokers. And over that time, I've watched my pre-licensees come in and they're excited and they want to learn more about real estate and they want to get their license. And then as class progressed, they became more and more concerned about their own professional responsibilities, and that started to dampen their enthusiasm. And they were concerned about serving their clients well. They were concerned about their responsibilities. They were concerned about growing, starting, and maintaining their businesses. So to address these concerns, I dedicated the last half hour of each of the pre-licensing classes to discuss some kind of scenario that had to do with that day's lessons. And in 4 of those classes, we discussed issues that having to do with starting, growing, and maintaining your real estate business. So this webinar today is based on those conversations with my students. So thank you for investing the next several minutes with us, and you're going to discover, I'm hoping that you can discover questions that you should ask yourself before you interview with a broker for your business. Because remember, when you interview with a broker, you're hiring a broker to fit your business. I'm hoping you can find tools you can use to start your business on a sound financial footing. It's so important to understand your finances and what you're comfortable with. And I hope that you can find your niche in real estate. This industry is huge, and finding your niche is very important. What you passionately love to do is important. And then there's always ways to generate business with little or no money, because for most of us starting a real estate business, we have little or no money. And I'm a firm believer that you do not want to go into large amounts of debt when you first start out. That is just one more burden that you don't need to deal with. So I started my business with little money and no debt. I maintained a cash business for 20 years. So I never ever went into debt on my real estate business, either as a broker or a salesperson. And that gave me great flexibility and great opportunity. So I'll give you some of those ideas as well. The topics we discussed today will hopefully help you move along in your business and also help you to reposition yourself or revamp your business over the years as the markets change, because the principles are the same throughout the process. So getting the most out of this session, to get the most out of the session, I recommend you take some notes, and AAR will be reposting this on AAR Online so that you can see it in the future and re-listen. But I encourage you to ask yourself, what are the questions I need to ask myself so that I make good decisions and seek the appropriate and useful help from my broker and my mentors? I think we need to accept that owning our own small business requires thought and constancy and guidance, but getting the right guidance means we have to have a plan. And the point of this webinar is to help you ask and answer some very basic questions, starting with, what is your life philosophy? How will that impact your business decisions? And what are your gifts and talents that will help you succeed? What do you need to do in order to have the information you need to make your best decisions? At certain points during the webinar, I'll encourage you to post your comments on a situation I describe, and at any time during the presentation, you can also ask questions by putting them on that screen to the right, on your right. So let's start at the beginning, your beginning. What's your philosophy, your guiding principles? Now, Aristotle created the reasonable man concept, and his reasonable man is virtuous and displays principles of practical and learned wisdom. He uses integrity and tools of discernment and prudence. With discernment and prudence, that reasonable man is able to distinguish between right and wrong and uses foresight and wisdom in determining if an action will be good for all concerned or harm others. That reasonable man also is able to husband his resources, whether it's financial, spiritual, or physical. And he's a moral and ethical man in all facets of his deliberation and action. Well, over time, Western philosophers also expanded that concept, and so you'll think of Cicero and St. Augustine and John Locke, Adam Smith, and John Adams, just to mention a few. And these and others extended Aristotle's ideas so that individuals are capable and indeed responsible for making those moral and ethical decisions and then judging their effect on themselves, on others, and on the community at large. The idea that individuals are born with rights to their intelligence, their labor, their time, their gifts, and their talents, and that they are entitled to the benefits of those was a concept that was well acknowledged at the time of our founding. And it was in fact incorporated into our country's definition of liberty and property. So we tend to think of property as real estate, but really property is anything we own. Most of us agree that we own our gifts and our talents and our labor and our time and our intelligence. But we choose how we will use those and how we will exchange those items for things we wish to attain. One of the most common exchanges is our willingness to exchange our time, talent, labor, and intellect for money. And we call that a job. We then take the benefits of those, and we decide that we would take this money for our job and exchange that for something else. We exchange it for food or entertainment or a house. Sometimes we choose to invest that money into something that we hope will reward us with even larger gains and more money so that we can have choices to do better things or bigger things or different things. And we choose to invest in something like the stock market or real estate or, for us, our own business. And by electing to attain our real estate license, we decided to start our own business. The good news is we have a world of opportunity to create our business. You have your own ability to find your way and to find a niche you love. You can even change or add to your niche over time. And the only real limitation is your ability, your work ethic, your ability to see real opportunity, and your integrity. So over the years of being a licensee, first as an agent and then as a broker owning my own brokerage, I've practiced several types of real estate, frequently at the same time. So I'm not necessarily a believer that you have to pick one little lane and stay in it. As you gain experience and knowledge, then you can expand into other types. And sometimes it's just a natural organic growth. I started out with first-time home buyers and small investors because that's what I was. I was a small investor, and I knew and understood what small investors and first home buyers were dealing with, looking for. So who do you know and who do you understand? Start thinking about that, because that's a good place to start. As my investors became more successful, they wanted to invest in larger projects with larger streams of income or bigger sales prices. And eventually I had a small group of investors willing to do small commercial projects. After evaluating the housing market and a large number of young and middle-aged people who were renters, but they wanted to be homeowners, they were stuck, we decided as a group we were going to start building small subdivisions, because our area had had a 20-year no-growth policy. So we literally had 2 generations of people who had been unable to buy houses, and that was a lot of pent-up demand. So think about government policies. What government policies may have created a new opportunity for you if you just look around and recognize it? After some research into work, home, and driving habits, and the desires of that group of people, we decided as a group that we could sell houses about 50 to 60 minutes away out of the city. And we began by taking options out on land that was about 12 to 18 months away from losing its agricultural designation. And during that 12 to 18 month period that we had that option, we would do our due diligence. And we actually did engineering and the whole 9 yards and brought the whole project to tentative map. And then at tentative map, we had a couple of choices. We could either develop that property and sell off the houses, or we could sell that tentative map and that project off to another home builder like a Lennar or KB Homes and let them build it out. Well, after a couple of years of these projects, we decided that time was right to develop small commercial projects in those same areas that we had just finished doing the houses. And in the end, we decided that we would choose to sell our projects rather than build them out and then move on, so we didn't tie up our capital for a longer period of time. So think about what type of tools in real estate financing, besides a loan, that might help you and your clients buy and sell real estate in a not necessarily typical way. So for us, that tool was the options. What tools can you latch onto that might help you and your clients? So meanwhile, during this time that I was helping my small investors about an hour outside of town develop these little projects, I also was practicing as a probate agent, and I was a listing agent for empty nesters, and I sold REO and short sale homes. This was in the 90s, and we were in the middle of a recession, so REOs and short sales were healthy. And that was my first 10 years in real estate. And then my next 10 were even more varied. The point is that although I never had per se a plan for my career, I started out with a small plan and knowledge, and then I expanded that plan and that knowledge as I experienced more, always keeping to my core standards and values. I think it's very important that you always be true to your own standards and values. And because of that, I drew to me clients and other real estate professionals who also shared those same standards, those same values. And soon I had a network of people that I wanted to do business with, and they wanted to do business with me. Today, we will talk about some of the pathways you can take to define your business, so you can choose clients and others to work with, and hopefully you can have an ability to change the pitch of your income from those notorious peaks and valleys that real estate income is known for to more like a gently undulating wave. So let's start with the most basic questions for you. Why do you want to start your own business? And why do you want to be a real estate agent? Anybody have any thoughts on what their basic wants for why even do this?
Okay, folks, so in the question box, tell us, why did you become a real estate agent? Samantha, you are new to the industry. Why did you become a realtor? And let's hope, right now, everybody is just saying they wanted to make money.
You want to make money, okay. All right, well, hopefully we're going to help you do that. So let's take a moment then and talk about your why versus your how versus the what. So what you do is you are a real estate agent. You are going to be a property manager. You are going to represent buyers and be a buyer's agent. That thing that you've decided you're going to do that in real estate. Your how is how you do what you do, your value proposition. You're going to search for sell by owners, FSBOs. You're going to inspect properties more often than other property managers. Or you're going to provide information reports that other agents don't know the information of. That's a value to your clients because you have special information and special reports you can give them, or a whole myriad of other things. So how are you going to do that? And why do what you do is the purpose of and that's your purpose, and it's your belief system. So that's really what matters. Why are you doing this? There must be a meaning that involves your philosophy and theology and your principles and your morals. For me, my why was rooted in my deep-seated belief that individuals do own their intelligence and their labor and their gifts and their talents and their time. And I believe that because of that, individuals are free to contract with whomever they wish. And they have the right and responsibility to write the terms of those contracts. And I think individuals can choose not to enter into a contract even if the reason they give me is, I feel in my gut. I shouldn't do this because in my gut I don't feel good about it. Okay, we are not going forward with this contract. We're not going to write this contract. I believe individuals are responsible to abide by the terms of the contracts for good or ill if they agree to. And I believe individuals are entitled to the benefits of the contracts that they enter into, or more importantly, sometimes the losses. And I believe individuals can and will make mistakes. And I believe they can and should be allowed to stand back up and learn the lessons and try again and again, and sometimes even again. And I believe the founders were right that individuals can and should own property. So I believe individuals who own this property are more likely to respect ownership rights of others. I believe that people who accept ownership and responsibility for themselves and their property honor those same rights in others. And thereby, they end up creating a better, fairer, more ethical community, and that's way better than the government or set of laws, because when individuals are governing themselves in an ethical and moral way, that is better than trying to abide by laws that no one agrees with. So I'm concerned that individuals and communities and real estate agents and actually the nation have forgotten some of the basic principles that the founders had, and instead have ceded some or all of their ownership rights to government entities. So my why is directly linked to my moral, theological, and philosophical principles. I started my business in order to conduct my business with those principles front and center. And people who did business with me chose to do business with me because they were comfortable with my underlying principles. Other people have and will choose not to do business with me because of those principles. And I have and will choose not to do business with some people because of their principles or lack thereof. So take a moment and write in the conversation box at the right of your screen your why for going into the real estate business beyond making money. What are some of the actual philosophical reasons you want to go in?
Well, we have quite a few here. Claudel said that they wanted to help people get into their first homes.
Great.
Robin said she was talked into it by a friend. Tammy said she's a brand new agent because of the service she received. She wanted to make a difference.
Okay.
Dennis just wanted a new and different career. Angela said she wanted to make money and have a flexible schedule.
Okay.
Jack retired from corporate America and wanted to be his own boss.
All right.
A couple people wanted to buy second, third, and fourth homes of their own. Wanted to be in control of his time, said Steve. Tina said she loved the area and wanted to share it, was also interested in her own schedule.
Good.
Elizabeth said she wanted to educate clients about real estate really means.
That's great, yeah.
Michael had one here. He said that he wanted to give back using philanthropy with business, and when you talk about real estate, most people get it. So it's a good platform to get your message out.
That's terrific.
I like that. And then Elizabeth said she wanted to educate her clients. Linda is talking about they were already investing in real estate and wanted to continue learning more. Very concerned about helping others, it seems to be.
That's great.
And then make people happy quite a bit. Assist individuals with that feeling of owning their first home. Isn't that the greatest thing in the whole world when you hand them the keys?
Handing the keys is the best part.
Like Christmas relived.
That's right.
And it seems like we've had some experiences, both good and bad, with other agents.
Okay.
That has influenced our decision.
So that's a catalyst. So if you were like me and you had not so great experiences, part of the catalyst was I want to do better. There's a better way of doing this. On the other hand, if you had a really great experience, then your catalyst was I want to be more like that really great agent. So that both sides, then it comes back down to serving your client well. So that's great. So as you think a little bit more about this, these types of ideas will start to gel and guide you into as your career progresses, and you'll make better decisions if you sort of keep those thoughts in your mind as you progress through. So what are you going to do in real estate? If you think about it, almost everything you see around you has some relationship to real estate. Property management, which quite frankly should be called people management, first-time home buyers, move-up buyers, retirees, vacation homes, small and large investors who either want to do fix and flip or buy and hold and build a business of streams of income, Class A buildings, coffee kiosks, churches, car dealerships, movie theaters, golf courses, gold and silver, logging, farming. So start making a list, and somewhere in there you're going to start finding your business niche. Oops, Daisy, sorry about that. All types of consumer goods and manufacturing. How about food production and processing? Recreation, natural resources, transportation, commercial enterprise, homes from small condos to large luxury villas. You have so many choices, and within each choice are further choices of specialization. You can specialize in types of property or the type of sale, the price point, the geography. It just goes on and on and on. And that's part of our problem. How do we decide what we're really good at and what we will do well at when we help our clients? When I was teaching my pre-licensing classes, I encouraged my students to list their gifts and talents and interests and use that as a starting point. But just as important is listing what you do not want to do. So about 3 years ago, I had a student who really could not decide what she wanted to do. So we went the other direction. We started with, well, why are you changing jobs? Why are you quitting the job you have and deciding to go into real estate? And it turned out she was a pediatric oncology nurse, and she'd been that for 20 years. And she loved her patients, and she loved her families, and she loved helping, but she was emotionally drained and spent. So she couldn't really keep going on. It was just not possible for her emotionally anymore. So she knew that whatever she did not want to have that emotional tax on her. Well, that automatically meant that she was not going to do distressed real estate. She wasn't going to do short sales or probate or REOs or bankruptcy or anything like that. And it also meant that she didn't feel comfortable helping first-time home buyers because she really did not want to feel that stress of what happens if the transaction doesn't close and they don't get that first home. For her, that was an emotionally taxing experience. So she didn't want to go there either. So after we talked about this a little bit, what we finally figured out is that she just loves knowing her clients. She loves helping them. She likes them to know her. She's so that very intimate, and then she's a nurse, so you can understand. She wants to have that intimate, emotional connection, but she wants to be on the positive side. So we decided to talk about what would fill that need for her. And we started considering, I suggested that she consider small and medium home builders. People who did 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 houses and therefore had an ability to have a client or 2 or 3 clients at a time. She would get to know the home builder very, very well. She would get to know the clients very, very well and help them through the process of their home. And because it was custom home builders, then the risk of fallout was less. So that diminished her anxiety about a negative consequence. Well, she started going to Home Builder Association lunches, started making those connections, and within a short while, she was on her way to actually connecting with a couple of those home builders and trying to work with them. So that was a good outcome from her. So be aware of where those negatives are for you and start to work around them. What opportunities open up? So tell me if this phrase conjures up an image in your mind. All dressed up and nowhere to go. So maybe you're thinking of a fine, proud woman who's putting on her best frock and carefully making herself up, and then she realizes she doesn't really have a special place or a special someone to see her. Or maybe a young man wearing his best suit, walking around a job fair, anxiously handing out resumes and hoping someone will notice him and ask, "Who are you? What do you do? Come on, let's talk." Well, both of these scenarios can happen to a new real estate licensee. We jump in, we take our 90 hours of classes, we pass the school test, we pass the state test, we get our license, we get hired, and then we get dressed and go to the office. And then what? And we sit in open house for another agent, and we attend a networking class and events, and then we have our license, and then what do we do? When you get your real estate license, you automatically become part of an honorable profession. And you have an awesome responsibility of protecting property rights for your clients, yourselves, and your community. And my hope is that we start to change your paradigm from I just have a license to thinking about real estate in all its interesting and diverse, historically significant, politically significant, and economically significant avenues. Almost everything you do in life contains some element of real estate and property rights, your personal wealth, personal freedom, and your life's conveniences like cell phones. Real estate includes the land, things attached to the land, the things below the land, and above the land. So have you ever wondered who owns the land the cell tower sits on? Or how much are the air rights for the cell tower, and who owns them? So think about it. If the landowner and the air rights holder had never sold or leased those rights to the cell phone provider, you would have this really cool paperweight right now, also known as no cell service. So what is your main purpose in starting your business? To sell real estate. And what's the purpose of your real estate brokerage? It's going to be to help you provide an environment that's helpful to you to sell that real estate. And what's the purpose of your broker? Well, to help you sell real estate in a profitable but also professional way. So how many times have you heard a new licensee say, all the brokers I talk with sound exactly the same? Well, here's the other side of that coin. All the new licensees I talk to sound exactly the same. So that's what happens when you just walk in the door and say, "Hi, I have a new license, please hire me." But also what happens if you aren't conscious of what you need and who you are and the type of business you're going to be practicing, and you hire the wrong broker, is 3 or 4 or 5 years into your career, you're saying, "My broker isn't giving me fill in the blank." Well, I'm going to suggest that if your broker is not giving you whatever you think you should be giving, that perhaps you actually hired the wrong broker for your business. So maybe you need to rethink that. I suggest you take the time to outline what you want in a broker before you interview them on a yellow pad. Do you want leads? Do you want training? Do you want floor time? What opportunities are you looking for? And of course, that automatically means that you have to already have some kind of business plan in place. It doesn't have to be complicated or formal. When I was a new licensee, I knew I needed help finding buyers and sellers. I knew I was going to work with small investors because I was a small investor. And that's who I knew. But I wanted a broker who would initially attend my listing and buyer appointments with me, because I also knew that things that I took for granted as common knowledge were in fact not common knowledge. So I needed my broker to sit with me at those appointments and guide me through them and make sure that I actually informed my clients and served them well, and then give me the tools so that I could begin to have all those tools at my disposal so I could go out and act well for my clients. So let's start with a few questions you can ask yourself in preparation for interviewing your broker. Training. What do you mean when you ask the broker for training? Because training is a really broad term. Do you mean you want DRE approved CEUs? Do you want training on building and maintaining a business? Do you want tips and techniques to survive a changing market? Do you want to maintain client relationships in order to transition your business to a referral-based business? Do you want training in that? Do you want training in creating and filling your business pipeline? Remember, we have a lag time from the time we meet someone to the time we sell a property, and in between we should have closings for all different kinds of clients. Do you need training in small business basics like budgeting and projection? Do you need marketing ideas? Do you need ways to bring additional value to your clients so you have your niche is very well defined? Do you need training in establishing a client appreciation program? And do you need training like just having simple one-on-one buyer and seller scripts that you can practice with someone? What else do you need from your broker? Do you need help selecting your niche? Do you need help evaluating your talents? If you're not aware of all your talents and gifts, then you may need help with someone helping you identify what those are. Do you need help with contract basics? And do you need help with one-on-one practice or shadowing? So start by writing up a simple 1-year and 3-year business plan. It doesn't matter where you start or your vision, just get momentum. Activity breeds opportunity, but the activity must be consistent with your business vision and purpose. So capitalize on your gifts, your talents, and what you like to do. I know an agent who's been in business over 30 years. She enjoys playing bridge, and she's garnered about 40% of her business over the life of her career from people she plays bridge with. When I was a new agent, one of the most successful agents in our office surfed every morning. And as it happens in San Diego, attorneys and doctors and other professionals also surf. And guess who his clients were? And here's a tip from Cary Grant, one of my favorite actors. He was once asked in an interview how he had come to be Cary Grant since he had run away from home as a kid and joined the circus. And his response was that when he became an actor, he always dressed and spoke and acted like Cary Grant. And then one day he woke up and he was Cary Grant. So look at yourself and consider dressing, speaking, thinking, and acting like you imagine your successful real estate self will be. So let's take a moment and brainstorm some ideas to get a listing. So just off the top of your head, can we think about 2 or 3 things real quickly that might be a way to get listings?
Do you want them to share those?
Yeah, sure. Just a couple of them.
So in the question box on your screen, if you would share just a couple of ways to get new listings. So we have referrals and expireds.
Okay.
Friends, open houses.
Okay.
A lot of referrals.
Okay.
Looks like we have a couple internet leads.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
And those are all tried and true ways. And if you are diligent, the key to success in real estate is diligence and constancy. So if you diligently follow those leads and you have a program to follow in a consistent way, you will be successful, no doubt. But let's talk about some other avenues that might garner you some buyers or sellers. But let's talk about listings first. So how about multifamily? How about if you ask a landlord if you can advertise for rent one of their units in their multifamily building? Or sell projects to investors, like I started selling the small projects to those small investors. Sometimes if you start with a small 2, 3, or 4 complexes, unit complexes, Those are similar enough to houses and to condos that you feel comfortable now going into that range and that realm, and then that can actually lead you to the 5, 6, which are considered commercial. So small commercial, which is why I ended up in a small commercial. It was very easy for me to transition from residential to small commercial. And the investment calculations on a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex are very similar to something that you would do for commercial. So you get practice on a smaller scale doing it. Much more comfortable to do that. It's a good entry point. So how about if you learn how to do BPOs, which are broker price opinions, or BVOs, which are broker value opinions. In the commercial world, they call them BVOs, and in the residential world, they call it BPOs. And you can use that skill of valuing property to represent either commercial or distressed commercial properties if you decide to do BVOs, and you can use it as resale or to help someone figure out how to buy a property, or distressed. There's distressed commercial property, which I did for a while. Those all are tools they use. That BVO is a tool you can use to open some of those doors. And there's companies who will hire you just to do a BVO or just to do a BPO. So that might get you a little income and a little practice as you start warming up and move your way into actual projects.
Well, Liz, before you go on, we just have a quick question.
Sure.
When you're doing a BPO, is it okay to ask for the listing?
Okay, so you have to look at who your BPO, who's hiring for a BPO. When I was working with individual investors, part of my deal was, yes, you can hire me to do a BPO, but I would like first shot at this listing. And that was a deal. That was a one-on-one conversation we had. When I was doing BPOs for lenders, then most of the lenders at that time had a clause in their contract with me that said that I would not seek a listing on that property. So in that case, I did not seek a listing. But what that does tell you, it usually had a time limit. I could not seek a listing for X number of weeks or days or months. That certainly didn't mean that I couldn't go back after that time limit and go seek a listing. So you have to look at the contract that you've agreed to and then abide by those terms. But yes, you can get the listing. And I did, and sometimes I would get a listing sometimes that way.
Thank you.
Speaking of distressed properties, go through the filings for bankruptcy. Those are public, online these days. You don't have to go down to the courthouse like I used to have to do. They are online, so you can find someone who's filing for bankruptcy, and if you know how to value property correctly through a BPO process or the BVO if it's commercial, then you have a good chance that they're going to want to sell their property either before, during, or after bankruptcy. And you might be able to help them do that, and you'll have knowledge that will be helpful to them. So think about new homes. And yes, you can go to work for a builder. That's one way of selling new homes. But I used to go to builders and ask them if I could advertise, first in magazines in the old days before we had websites, and then on my website, some of their models. And the traffic that came through my advertising would be my buyers that I could then take to them, and they would pay me a commission. And I've done that on and off various times over the 20 years as the new builds came or went. It's a great way to get that business and have lots of flexibility. Sometimes someone thinks they want to buy a new build, and it turns out they actually want to buy a resale. You can just steer them into that. But if you created that buyer, then you have control over what happens, and you can usher them into whatever property is best for them. In the meantime, it's much easier now to get that permission to advertise for new builders than it ever was before. There's a website called the New Home Ambassador, and it's gathered contracts with several new home builders, and it has said to them, okay, our people who sign up with us, they have the right to advertise your houses. The New Home Ambassador website actually has blogs that you can they give you permission to use on your website or to have your own website within the New Home Ambassador suite of websites. And it's a great way if you don't know how to get started, or you have no, you don't want to actually call the new home builders individually. It's a great way to automatically have access to several new home builders right away, and they will guide you through the process, at least from the internet marketing standpoint. And for me to sign up, I signed up for that about a year and a half ago, and for me to sign up for that was $29 for life. So that is very inexpensive. And I put on the screen the YouTube video that they did sort of describing the process. But if you go to newhomeambassador.com, that's their actual website. But the YouTube will give you an idea of how this works. It was a great site for me as far as being able to market to people who might want to do new homes. So consider that. And $29 for life, that's a bargain. So think about HUD homes. If your broker has an NAID number from HUD, and it's a free number, they just have to register with HUD, then you can advertise and sell HUD homes. HUD assigns one listing agent, but any licensee whose broker has an NAID number can sell HUD homes. You can advertise those HUD homes. And as far as I know, I am the only agent that ever held them open. When I was a new agent, I didn't know anybody was going to buy or sell a home, so I had to create my own listing inventory. So since HUD homes would let me advertise and sell them, I thought, well, why not go one step further and have an open house? So I would look at the HUD homes. I would pick 3 houses within a certain radius of each other in a neighborhood. I would advertise the open house, and my open house would be one particular day. I'd pick a Saturday, and I'd have house number 1 open from 10 to 12, and house number 2 open from 12:30 to 2:30, and house number 3 open from 3 to 5. That left me enough time to go gather my signs between open houses. So 2 hours at each open house, half hour in between, so I could drive, get my signs, put them out for placement for directionals for the next open house, boom, boom, boom. And when I opened those open houses, first of all, no one ever got to see HUD homes until after they already bought them. So I had investors as well as traditional buyers who wanted to see these houses before they put a bid on it. So I got a huge stream of people. I ended up with a group of people who actually watched for my ads in the paper so that they would know when they could go tour at least the 3 HUD homes I had open. And they would follow me. And these people would follow me from house 1 to 2 to 3. That entire day. Now, at that open house, I had, of course, the HUD contract in case someone actually wanted to submit an offer. But I also had a listing of all of the houses available for sale in that neighborhood, and I particularly starred the vacant ones. And if someone said, well, gosh, I don't really think I want to buy a HUD home. It seems like an awful lot of work, but I like the neighborhood, then I would say, well, you know, my open houses today are over at 5 o'clock. How about at 5:30 I meet you at, and I would give them the address of one of the vacant houses that I could show that afternoon. And we would go over there, I'd show it, talk to them, and frequently that would lead to that buyer signing on to me to be their buyer's agent, and we would go find them a different type of house. It was a great gateway, and it was also just service to them. They didn't know if they'd want to buy a HUD home or not. Now they did. Well, HUD also has some specialty programs, and their specialty programs are the Good Neighbor Next Door. At the time I first started doing the HUD homes, it only was for police officers and law enforcement, so Border Patrol, CHP, police, that type of thing. They've since expanded that program. It includes teachers and first responders of all types. So it's a special program, and they've designated certain houses for these people, and they can buy it for basically for very little money down and a really good price. But what I found when I did this, particularly with my law enforcement officers, is I found that the houses sometimes were in neighborhoods that they didn't want to live in, sometimes because they would walk into the neighborhood and go, oh my gosh, I recognize some of these people. I don't want to live in a neighborhood where I put these people or their cousins in jail type of thing. So we go look for them at another house. They could afford a house outside that neighborhood. They'd just been drawn in by that program. So we discounted the HUD program when they walked into the neighborhood and said, no, I don't want to do that. And I got them into another house they could afford in a different neighborhood that they did want to be in. It turned out that I really enjoyed working with people from the military and from law enforcement. And I got a lot of referrals from those people. When you do a good job for someone like that, they know other people just like themselves, and they refer those people to you. And so I had this group of referral clients out of law enforcement and military that I really enjoyed working with. So what else can we do? Well, how about those coffee carts and other types of business kiosks you see? I knew an agent who loved coffee, and she had a heart for the very small business owners. And so she ended up specializing in coffee carts. Now, some of the coffee carts she owned and rented out, but sometimes she actually ended up helping others sell their coffee carts. That became her business. And she would seek opportunities for coffee carts like ER rooms after 4 o'clock or train stations or bus stations, just all sorts of opportunities. And that was what her business niche became. How about business opportunities that specialize in selling business opportunities is a specialty within our business. So I knew an agent once who she specialized in Chinese restaurants. She was Chinese. She could speak Chinese. She understood what the Chinese families and restaurant owners wanted and needed and were trying to accomplish, and that's what she helped them do. So she specialized in helping people buy and sell Chinese restaurants. And then I knew another agent who had been, after World War II, he was Japanese, and after World War II, his family had started a farm. Well, after about 30 years of farming, he decided he no longer wanted to farm. And so he was able to come up with a sale for his farm that was really good and had the ability to have other farmers go, wow, that was a great deal you made. Can you help us? Well, because so many farmers wanted him to help them, he got his real estate license, and he spent his real estate career helping other Japanese farmers buy and sell their farms. How about churches? Buying and selling, leasing churches, either helping churches locate in the suburban areas into small retail established retail areas because they can't afford their church yet. Or how about in the urban areas? Sometimes you'll find a church where the church members have moved out of the area and now you have an abandoned church, so what to do with that church ground. So finding alternative uses for those churches. You can specialize in those types of things and help clients who are interested in that. Acquire land or change the use of that land, all sorts of types of things. Or what other types of businesses can you think of that are like that? How about farms or ranches or cell towers or preschools? There's all sorts of specialty business stuff that you can help as populations ebb and flow in and out of an area you might be able to specialize in. And how about specialty rental areas, rental spaces? Here in Phoenix we have a commercial kitchens who stand empty for portions of the day and evening, and then so think bakeries, and then they need someone to take over that space and they can rent it. And we actually have someone who's come into Phoenix and they rented a light industrial space and they put up several small industrial kitchens that you can rent by the hour or the day. So can you be a real estate agent who helps these people with these types of issues? Think about those specialties. And then my next idea comes from one of my own clients who didn't really like people wanting to invest in real estate. And so what we ended up with is I found hotels that would let you buy a hotel room as an investor, and then you use the hotel system to rent it out. So two of the examples are here. If you go to Inn Suites across from Arizona Mills, you can buy a hotel room, and then their hotel booking system books the hotel. That worked out well for him. He didn't have to talk to anybody or anything. So it worked out well for him. So think about some of those specialty needs that might come up. And then there's social needs in our communities that can be addressed with real estate. And you can help clients who have a social need they want to help with, help them also be an investor. And I had an investor who once invested in houses around VA hospitals. He had a heart for veterans, and he wanted to be able to have them. Some of them don't need to be in the hospital the whole time for rehab. That's the only place for them to be, or their families need to come in and visit. And he would rent his rooms out to the veterans who are trying to rehab and need to be there, or he rent his houses out to families who were visiting their loved ones in the hospital, and eventually he ended up a contract with the VA hospital. So that ended up being very profitable, but also good. So as we go through, think about what 3 things can you do to meet new potential clients so that you can help maintain and grow your business. And as you think about that, remember, you have to be whatever you choose to do, you have to be consistent in that pursuit. So some ideas are the old-fashioned cold calls. When I started, I had to do cold calls, and I set aside every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11, I did 200 cold calls. And that meant over a week, I did 1,000 calls. And what I found was that for every 1,000 calls I did, 6 people were interested. For every 6 people who are interested, 3 of them wanted an appointment with me. For every 3 who wanted an appointment, I either got a real live buyer or seller who purchased something or sold something through me. Think about farming in terms of geographic area. Think about door knockers and walking the neighborhood. And some of our affiliates sometimes have door knockers you can use that will say, hey, if you buy a house through me, I will provide you with a free home warranty. I had a home warranty company who worked with me on that. That can be a great thing. Or think about your business card. I put local coupons for local restaurants and businesses on the back of my business card one year, and the coupons were good for that 1 year. Not only did my clients keep my business card, but they asked me for more so they could hand them out for their friends and family. So my clients ended up, on average, handing out 25 of my business cards that year that people kept because there were coupons on the back. And yes, I got calls off of that. So think about those types of things. You can help small business in your area and also help your clients. And I had knew one agent who just said, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to hand out 25 business cards a day to people I don't know. And at the end of the day, she had not, on her way home, she had not handed out those 25 cards. She stood in front of a Circle K or 7-Eleven and handed it out as people walked in the doors. There are all sorts of things that you can do, and so just think about what's available to you in the world around you, either through family, friends, or your brokerage. So starting with your first client, you're going to want to start a business appreciation program, because if you're like me, I didn't want to do cold calls the rest of my career. And over my career, I was able to, over the first 5 years of my career, I went from 100% cold calls to within year 3 doing 50% referrals to my 5th year I had 100% referrals. And part of that was I had gone ahead and developed a client appreciation program. So you're going to take your A-list clients, those who are most likely to recommend you and work with you, and you're going to send them mailings, or in these days even emails. But I always sent a snail mail. Even a few months ago, I was still sending snail mail to my client appreciation people, because that's something that they open. These days people get a lot of email. They don't get a lot of real mail. So consider that. And I would send things like every February I send HUD-1 or closing statements from last year's closing to all those clients, because guess what they're looking for come February? They're looking for those closing statements because they're doing their taxes and they don't know where they put them. So they would come magically in the mail, and they love that. Even my probate attorneys really love that. So think about all of your clients, not just your individuals. Certificates to local businesses. One of my most popular was sending out 1 July, just ice cream certificates to the local Baskin & Robbins. So think about those types of things that you can do. Ask your clients for recommendations of businesses and services they use in the community, and then put it all, consolidate it all together and send that out to your clients as, look what you and other clients use in our community for good services, and people really appreciate that. And don't forget your escrow or your lenders, or if you do REOs, your asset managers. Those vendors are your clients too in a lot of ways. And send a Christmas card, a thank you note. They so appreciate that. My asset managers in the REO world never got thank you notes or Christmas cards. And when I sent them Christmas cards, they gushed for weeks after. And then, once again, remember about your financial footing. I came up with a basic budget. Basic budget for clients, basic budget for agents. And if you go to the kitchentableadvisor.com under free budget tools, you can download for free this simple budget, which you can help your clients with. And I also have one for agents to help you with your business. And it's a good way to start and make sure that you're always on a good financial footing. If you do one of these a month, then you will find out if you start overspending in a category. Schedule upcoming workshops and classes, or do updates on the Dodd-Frank changes. Or go to a lawyer or a tax attorney and have workshops and team up with him or her and use their client base as part of the invitees. So as you go through, think about other opportunities you have to personally meet with your clients. So when I had my business, I made it a habit to every Christmas season I would drop off Christmas cookies to my clients. Sometimes I've known agents who have done spring picnics for their clients. Holding the whole free tax workshop in about March or so with a local CPA works really well. Just make sure you have his client base as well as your client base, so that are working both sides of that. Housewarming parties. One of the most popular things I ever did was offer my clients, after they closed an escrow, buyer or seller, a housewarming party about 6 weeks after close of escrow. They loved it, their friends and family loved it, and of course at the end of the sandwich line was a stack of my business cards. So sometimes specialized knowledge is your ticket to success. And specialized knowledge can be as easy as knowing what to do in some of the scenarios that we see today. If you're working in retirement areas, think about when you walk in to take a listing, and after you've done everything and everything's going swimming, your client turns to you and says, well, gosh, we think we'd really like to stay here, so we think we might go with reverse mortgage. Well, what tool do you have? You have a real estate tool, and that's the life estate. So rather than say, okay, and leave, you actually have a better tool than the bank. And in fact, that reverse mortgage is based on the life estate. But you can save that client lots of money in fees, and you can get them more money using that same tool, because it actually is a real estate tool. So think about it. A bank might buy that property from them for about 40% of market value. You can probably find either a family member or an investor who would buy that property at somewhere around 70% of market value. You've already made them a lot more money, and you're not going to charge the fees, and neither is your buyer going to charge as many fees as that bank. So you can actually help that client better. And you get a listing. And let me tell you, that helps with your reputation. Now, I will tell you, if you go into a retirement community, this becomes once again, you have to be consistent and long-term in your strategy, because you are actually re-educating people out of that debt tool the reverse mortgage, and back into the asset their house really is, the life estate. So today we discussed several ways that you can plan and grow and achieve success in real estate. And I hope the techniques and ideas and tools we discussed today help you as you begin your real estate career and you progress through it over the decades. Real estate is a great career opportunity, and you can help lots of people while you help yourself succeed. To extend the learning, I encourage you to connect with me on social media including my blog at thekitchentableadvisor.com. And it's been a pleasure to putting on this webinar for you today. I'm honored that you chose to spend your time with me and AAR. And remember, you're helping people attain their dreams and secure their futures and become prosperous. So enjoy real estate in all its forms.
Well, thank you very much, Liz. We just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
We were talking about BPOs and, you know, what a great avenue for a little bit of extra money. How do you get into BPOs?
Well, I think that if you're going to get into BPOs, rather than just try to wing it and go online and do a tutorial and call it good, I think you need to do it more professionally. So when I started doing BPOs, I went to the National Association of BPO Brokers, which is right here in Scottsdale. And you can go online. It's NABPPO. And you go to their website, and they actually have training and certification in how to do BPOs that is recognized in the industry. So once you go through their trainings, and you can go through it at your own pace, it's all online, very informative. I printed a ton of information out so that as I did my BPOs, I could always refer back to it in a binder format. So make sure you have ink, toner, and paper in your printer, because you're really going to want this information. And it's an online process, and then you become very good at it, and you do more and more, and that's when you can get on with lenders or probate attorneys, or sometimes bankruptcy trustees who need good valuations and need to know that someone understands the valuation. Those are all good avenues for that type of tool.
And what about REOs? Get into REOs these days?
I think you have to be very, very cautious. REO business changed from the 90s to the aughts and into the teens. It has changed dramatically. I would really suggest you sit down with your broker who is experienced with REOs and how they changed. There's a lot more expense involved now than there ever was. There's a lot more risk for you, the agent, than there ever was. So I think you need to be prepared for that. And this is where your budgeting comes into reality. When I was doing REOs in this last group of REOs, more and more companies and lenders had gotten into forcing us as the agent and broker to turn on the utilities ahead of time and to bear those expenses for 4, 6, 8 months. And then they would tell us they would reimburse us. The reality was that when they were reimbursing well, you still did not get reimbursed for about 20% of those utility charges. That's just a reality of that business. So you have to be financially prepared to absorb 20% non-reimbursement rate. And you have to be on top of your budget to know if that lender or that company starts not reimbursing, or it takes too long. Instead of taking 6 months, it takes them 9 months, or they don't reimburse, they start going to 25 or 30% non-reimbursement rate. You may have to cut that contract up because they're going to end up financially hemorrhaging you. So you have to be very aware, be very cautious. Work with someone who is well-versed in what's going on now.
Sounds good. Thank you. Michael had a great suggestion. He says if you see a car at the market with a veteran's license plate, to leave your card on their window and simply say thank you for their service.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That's a great idea. So Liz, let's talk about, we have quite a few brand new agents on the webinar today. What would be like the one thing? Their phone's not ringing, they don't have any leads, they don't have an internet presence yet. What's like one thing that you would suggest they do maybe to get their feet on the pavement and get that phone ringing for them?
And the feet on the pavement is the hardest part, because we like to hide behind technology or phones, those type of things, because we think it's going to help us. And honestly, real estate is a person-to-person business. Quite frankly, physically walking a neighborhood, I was still physically walking neighborhoods in neighborhoods I wanted to break into as late as 6 months ago, because it was a new neighborhood I wanted, and I was meeting people and talking to them, giving them my card, or giving them, like I said, that home warranty door knocker was a very popular one. And I would tell them when I sat open houses for other agents or brokers, I would sit who had listings in an area. I would sit that open house, and I always scheduled a workshop during that open house. So if I had an open house from 10 to 3, then I would advertise open house 10 to 3, workshop between 11 and noon. So in 2006, when I had short sales and nobody knew what a short sale was, I had short sale listings, I had open houses, and I had a short sale workshop during the course of that for agents and the public. When I do open houses, I will do a buyer, if it's just a regular traditional sale, I'll do a buyer workshop as part of that. I invite I walk around the neighborhood 3 days before, and I invite every single, with a written invitation, I invite every single neighbor to come to that. So find someone who has an open house and work the open house like it's a real thing. Just don't show up 5 minutes before you open the door. Prepare like this is a real business opportunity, because it is. And you will get neighbors who come in and say, you know, my cousin is looking for a house. My friend, my daughter. That's opportunity. So you have to start looking at this more of how can I make this into a real business. You must know somebody in the world who does some kind of business that would be conjunctive with real estate. So an attorney who does family law, maybe you could join up with that person and do a specialized real estate / family law workshop, or the CPA, or someone who specializes, if you want to go into small commercial, someone who specializes. Or go visit, if you're interested in investors, go down to the Arizona Investors Association, very, very active group of people, and talk to some of those people. Get to know them, help them out.
Okay, thank you, Liz. And can you say what that national BPO site is again?
I'm doing this from memory. So NABPPO, BPO. So NAB is in boy, BPO. That was that's the organization. And if you Google national BPOs in Scottsdale, you should be able to come up. And if you can't find it, just email me at liz@wesellrealestate.com, and I'll find that address. It's been a while since I Googled it, but I will find that for you and send it to you.
And can you repeat the link to the Kitchen Table Advisor?
www.thekitchentableadvisor.com.
So thekitchentableadvisor.com. For a brand new agent just starting out, do you have an opinion about ZTR, worth the money?
So here's the thing with anything like that. I would talk to your broker, find out what programs they're doing, because if they're already marketing through Zillow and Truly and all that stuff, then maybe you want to ride on their coattails and not actually go expend the money. You might be better off, you might find out you're better off if you're like a big on Facebook. You might pick a neighborhood to do the Facebook ads, talk to them about that. That might be a better use of your funds if you want to go onto the internet and do internet marketing. And sometimes they get so many leads off of the internet marketing, the magazines, the newspapers, the internet, that they're just looking for someone to take up that slack. So volunteer to be that person who takes that slack. When I was a broker one time, I was creating so much business, I couldn't follow up on all my sign calls and my ads and stuff like that. And I was trying to find agents who would just take my overflow.
Thank you very much. Going back to the HUD open homes, did you have to have a certain approval, an okay where you want to list? How were you able to do that?
So I wasn't the listing agent. There's one listing agent giving it, but the way the HUD program is, because the HUD is government and we the people own that, then any broker with that NAID number, and that's the number that allows you to submit the offer and it has HUD recognize you as a broker. Any broker has that, their agents can go ahead and sell those things. You can advertise it on the web, you can advertise it in magazines, newspapers, whatever you want to. I just took it one step further and went ahead and advertised an open house and opened them up. There was no competition for open houses, so I didn't have to worry about that. And honestly, when was the last time you saw a HUD home here in Phoenix opened up for open houses? It just doesn't happen. So I never felt that it was a problem. I would put the ad in the newspaper, an ad on my website, that type of thing. We didn't have Facebook and things like that at that time. So you could extend that out now to the Facebook listings that you do, or Instagram, or however else you proliferate and advertise it. But you don't have to, HUD doesn't care what you do. They just want the house sold.
I am answering some questions here. Wanted to make sure everyone, I sent the link out for the nabpop.org, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Edsel, appreciate that. Let's see, great information. Thank you very much. If you're looking for information on Realtor.com, we did a webinar, I believe, in August or September, and we covered all of the top free tools from that website. So I definitely encourage you to, spend a few minutes and really delve into that. It was a really wealth of information regarding Realtor.com. And then also coming up on October 26th, we are talking criminals credit and the new HUD guidelines. Had quite a few people asking about this whole new sex offender category. So we're going to be having a webinar coming up on October 26th with Mike Mumford. You can go to AAR Online's calendar and register. And then coming up on December 14th, we have effective marketing strategies, refresh, reinvest, and reinforce with Beth Adams. So Liz, thank you so very much for joining us today. Any closing remarks?
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it. I hope that you each have gotten at least some kind of tool or ability to think about your business and hopefully keep it going and enjoy what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.